Okay. So in the last session, we discussed about what does it mean by Oracle Fusion Cloud Financial Applications, right? Oracle Fusion Cloud Financials Applications. This is the point we discussed. Oracle means company or database. Fusion means the solution from the different ERP and enterprise applications they taken. And cloud, instead of using our own servers, we can use Oracle servers, and the virtual servers Oracle will keep available in the nearest data centers so that user experience will be rich. And other side, clients no need to buy the server infrastructure, no DBS network and admins are required, no license is required to use the product. It's all about subscription based on the applications and users by following the time period. And we discussed about what does it mean by financials, what are the finance related transactions or money related transactions we record. All those departments, we have a different applications. Those applications we call as financial applications. These are the core financial applications. Primarily these are the five. Then each department, what are the activities we do, the same activities we can do using these applications. And what does it mean by application, that also we discussed. The three components, the pages, reports, database, the collection of these three components only we call as a application. So these are the points we discussed about Oracle Fusion Cloud Financials applications. Now let's look at a term called as Oracle Fusion Financials and Oracle Fusion Cloud Financials. What is the difference between these two? So when I talk about Oracle Fusion Financials, the meaning is you are going to use Oracle Fusion Financials only, but in your own server. Okay, by using your own server, if you are going to use Oracle Fusion Financials, you should call it as Oracle Fusion Financials. Instead of having your own server, if you are going to use Oracle Fusion Financials applications with the help of Oracle provided servers with the cloud computing, if you are going to use that Oracle provided servers, nothing but virtual servers, then you should include the term called as cloud within the Oracle Fusion Financials. So when you see the term called as cloud, simply you have to understand the servers are provided by Oracle. If there is no term as a part of this Oracle Fusion Financials, you should understand that is your own server. You are not going to use the applications which are provided by Oracle through their own virtual servers. This is only the difference we have to understand. The most of the clients are using this SaaS subscription. In the last session we discussed, we have a three modes: SaaS, PaaS and IaaS. So most of the clients are using the SaaS. Okay, that means most of the clients are using Oracle Fusion Cloud Financials. Even if they are going to use PaaS subscription, also we call as cloud only. Could be SaaS or PaaS, we call as a cloud. So in the SaaS, when you compare SaaS with the PaaS, these are the few points which you have to notice. The primary difference we discussed. In case of SaaS, product customizations are not possible. In PaaS, that is possible. And here auto upgrades, Oracle will help us. In case of PaaS, if you want to upgrade to latest release or version, so we have to do that activities by following the manual process. So these are the few differences we discussed, and this is the difference between Oracle Fusion Financials and Oracle Fusion Cloud Financials. Done. If you are going to work for any company as an Oracle Fusion Financials consultant, okay, so if you learn this course and if you are okay with this product, if you are going to work on the project, okay, you will work as a Oracle Fusion Cloud Financials consultant. If you are going to work as a Oracle Fusion Cloud Financial Consultant, so what are the points we have to understand? Okay, what are the areas we have to focus, and everything we'll discuss from the scratch. Now, the very first point is, say you are going to work for one of the client as a Oracle Fusion Cloud financial consultant. Then we should understand how they are going to maintain this product for their company. So what are the applications they are going to use for their company that they'll get access from Oracle. When they get access from Oracle, that access they get with the name called as instance. Okay, all the applications, say we are going to implement financials and SCM. The financials and SCM applications access Oracle will provide that environment we call as instance. Okay, the environment, whatever Oracle is going to provide to us to implement and use for any company, that we call as instance. Okay, or you can call as a pod also, POD, pod, like iPod. The cloud environment, the cloud applications, what we are going to get for any client, that we call as a pod, POD pod, or you can say instance. By default, every client will get access to two instances. Every client will get access to two instances. So two instances. One instance basically we can use for testing purpose. As a part of implementation, we can use the instance for testing. Since we are going to use the instance for testing, that instance we call as a test instance. Okay. The instance what we are going to use for testing as a part of implementation, that instance we call as a test instance. Within the test instance only, initially we do all the setups, we will test, we will verify, and will show to the client, and will take their approval or say sign off. If everything is fine, if client is happy with that solution which we are going to provide, the same solution will implement in the another instance, that is the instance which client is going to use. That instance we call as production instance, or in short you can call as prod. Okay. You can say production instance, in short you can say prod instance. So by default every client will get two instances when they are going to implement Fusion applications. The one instance we can use for testing, that is the reason we call it test instance. Is going to okay. We'll discuss. Let me explain. If you have any questions, we'll just discuss on that. So every client will get access to two instances. One instance we call as a test instance. The reason, during the implementation process, we have to test all the business scenarios of the client. Okay, if they need payables application, we do the setups and we'll show to the client how the payables can be useful for them as per their business requirement, how to create invoices, how to make the payments, how to create the suppliers, what are the other business scenarios they are handling as a part of payables department, how those can be managed in the payables department. Those all will set up in the test instance as a part of payables application and will show to the client. So for that, before that we do the testing, and we will present to the system to the client, and if they have any clarification required, we will provide. If they are expecting the solution, the other process or other way, like if they have some specifications related to any solution, we'll make a note accordingly, we'll do the setups, or will try to provide the solution as per business requirement. Everything we do in the test instance. So that is the reason, since we are going to use this instance during the implementation process, this we call as a test instance. So once everything is fine, if client is okay with the solution which we are offering, which we have shown to the client in the test environment, then the same solutions, the same setups will do again in the production. We can move all the settings from the test to production also. We'll discuss those points also, now not required. So we'll just keep this production instance ready. So once production instance is ready, client will start using this production instance to record day-to-day business transactions. So if any client is going to use PaaS subscription, platform as a service. The same instance they can use for testing as well as production development also. Already we discussed in case of as platform as a service, client can use the instance to do the customizations, product related customizations. So product related customizations also you can do in the same instance. So in that case, the same instance you can call as development instance, or you can short you can say dev instance. Development instance in short you can say dev instance. So in this scenario, if client is going to use this cloud subscription from Oracle with a PaaS subscription, the same instance will use for testing and development also. Okay, the same instance. So whatever the solution we are going to offer to the client, everything will test in this environment. Along with that, we can use the same instance for development. Okay, whatever the new functionality client required, and everything, all the development related activities also will do in the same instance, so that the same instance we can use for testing as well as development purpose. Or else you can take one more additional instance from Oracle. By default, Oracle will provide 2 instances only. If you pay extra, okay, if you want additional instances, we have to pay separately for that. You may get one more instance, one instance for testing, another instance for development. Anyway, we need our instance as a production instance. That's how you can plan, but by default you get only 2 instances from Oracle. And one more point, when you get this test instance, production instance, these instances would be blank. There won't be any sample data. Okay, there won't be any sample data. If you look at payables or receivables or general ledger application, if you look at any application, there won't be any sample data. If you look at payables application, you don't find any sample suppliers, or if you look at receivables, you don't find any sample customers or invoices, payments, banks, nothing. You don't find any sample data in test instance or production instance. When you get these instances from Oracle, these instances you can find as a blank instances, so that we can start doing the setups as per our client business requirement. Sometimes Oracle provides instances with some sample data. Okay, Oracle can get instance from Oracle with a sample data. Say with sample data. You can get the instance from Oracle with the sample data. When you get instance from Oracle with the sample data, when they are going to create something in the system, they have to use some company name. So whatever the instance Oracle is providing with the sample data, in that instance, they are using the company name called as Vision. The company name is Vision. So with the sample data, when you get instance, within that you can find the company name as a Vision. So since we are getting instance from Oracle with a sample data with the name called as Vision, that instance itself you call as a Vision instance. Okay, Vision instance. So ideally this Vision instance we can use for test training or testing purpose. Okay, so at the time of implementation we get these 2 instances. Okay, the 2 instances you can find as a blank instances. There won't be any sample data, but Oracle is providing Vision instances for training purpose or some sort of testing purposes. Now the instance what we are going to use for our training is Vision instance. Vision instance we are going to use, but we are not going to look at the sample data. Okay, at the time of implementation, how we do the setups in this fresh instance, we are going to follow the same process. We are not going to depend on any sample data Oracle is going to provide. This is the point we have to understand. So what does it mean by Vision instance? The Vision instance is the instance which Oracle is providing with the sample data. As a part of sample data, we can find the name called as Vision. Vision is the company name Oracle is taking when they created sample data. Okay, they created sample data in the instance by using the company name called as Vision instance. This instance we can use basically for training or testing purposes. So, but reality, when we are going to work for any company, you get two instances. The two instances you can find as a blank, no sample data you can find. Okay, when we are going to do the implementation for any company, what process we follow, the same process we are going to follow in this instance. Only the difference is here you can find sample data, here no sample data. Even we have a sample data here, we are not going to check that. Okay, we'll completely ignore the sample data. We'll create everything from the scratch. Okay, we don't need to refer that sample data which Oracle is providing. These are the few points we have to understand when we talk about the landscape of the instances which Oracle is going to provide. Any questions here from anyone, please? Any questions from anyone, please?
Yes, sir. What about the cloning part? Like how it will be happening? Is there any option?
Can you be a bit loud, please? The voice is.
Yes, sir. Now, actually, I want to know. I would like to know how the cloning part will be taken care.
Yeah. See, cloning means nothing but copying the data from one instance to another instance. Here, the test instance, say you did all the setups. All the setups data you can move from test instance to production instance. How to do this activity I'll show in the classes. This we can do as a functional consultant. We don't need any DBA support. By using the concept called as configuration package. By using the configuration package, you can move the setups data from one instance to another instance. Only setup data. If you want to say you did all the setups in the test instance, you done the setups, only setups. If you want to move from this instance to this instance, you can use the configuration package concept and you can move the setups. Along with the setups, say you recorded some invoices and you processed payments, that means those are the transactions. If you want to move the transactions data from test instance to production instance, we have to take the DBA support. With the help of DBA, database administrators, we can move the setups from one instance to another instance. If you want to move the only setup data from one to other instance, we can use the configuration packages. By using the configuration packages, we can move the setups from one to other instance. If you want to move the transactions related data also from one to other instance, we have to take the DBA's help. Okay, say your requirement is setups as well as transactions, or else whatever you have in this instance, everything you have to copy. That we may call it as a cloning. Copying one instance data from one to other instance, that we can call as cloning. So those all activities should be done by DBA. Okay, only setups means yes, we can do as a functional consultant. I'll cover in our classes how to do that. Okay, well, the data setups from one to other instance, what process we have to follow, how to extract that setup files, how to upload in the targeted instance, we will discuss. So this is a
Hi, you've said that.
Along with the cloning, means this setup, are we eligible to create the instance also
no,
provide means creating
no,
the storage block?
no privileges to the clients to create the new instances. Only Oracle would provide two virtual instances we have to use. If we require one more instance, we have to request Oracle. They'll charge for that additional instance and they'll provide. Because in case of EBS, you can have your own DBA, okay, your project DBA. You can ask the DBA to create multiple instances. They can create multiple copies, which we call as multiple instances. Okay, but in case of Fusion, we cannot create new instances. Whatever Oracle is going to provide, those we can use. Please, any other questions, please?
Regarding the storage and block, like we will be creating the block storage, object storage, those are not required.
Yeah, that we cannot do. If any that storage related or any database, other security, other aspects, we have to keep in touch with the Oracle DBS team, Oracle Cloud DBA team.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
fine. Any other questions, please? Okay, on this point, any questions from anyone, please? Yeah, please. Okay. Seems to know.
Yeah, Lakshman, for the test instance.
Yeah.
Yeah, test instance only, how the development and the test instance will be segregated, because that is an only one instance. How it is happening in the future? Because normally for the hardware or something, we have the separate instances.
That's what. See, if you are ready to get one more instance, since you have a many developments, okay, then you get one more instance. Otherwise, you have to plan to use the same instance for both purposes. See, you have a few customization requirements, then you can think, okay, these customizations won't disturb this instance while we are testing. If you think in that line, you can proceed with the same. Say you have many customizations. So when we are going to do the many customizations, and the customizations also you have to test. When we are going to do all these activities, other side, the same instance, we are going to use functional friend to do the setups and to test and to present to the client. If you think there will be some inconvenience, there could be some issues which you may come across because of these developments and all, you can plan to have one more instance. So that, see what I'm saying, what point I'm trying to share with you here is, Oracle will provide two instances. If you want to proceed with only those two, this is how you have to plan. In case of, if you are going to implement PaaS subscription, if it is SaaS, no issues. Anyway, you don't do any developments. If you do any developments, then mostly those are some report related developments. Only in case of PaaS only you do some additional developments. Even the additional developments also, they'll create a separate platform. Within that you can do the development and you can deploy and you can test in that environment. There won't be any issue. But if you want a separate instance for your developments, yes, get one more instance from Oracle. You have to raise request to Oracle, service request, accordingly there, just you can keep in touch with them and you can get one more instance.
Even in the test instance, if some configurations, when we are doing in a setups or something, we have mistakenly some wrong configurations has done, and reports are coming out of any issues are coming out. So in that case, how that will be rectified? Again, we have to go in the same instance and do the setup again.
So yes, you did the setups in the test instance and you identified something wrong with that. You can go and correct it. The setups anytime you can go and correct. 99% setups you can correct. Maybe there are few setups which are like one time setup. If you do that setup, you cannot undo. Most of the setups you can update. Yeah. Any other questions here, please?
Okay, due to that wrong setup, some transactional data has been went wrong. So in that case, how it would be?
See, generally it won't happen. Okay, who are expertised on the product, they will do the setups. Even if they do mistake, they can correct. Okay, say they did some wrong setup when they are recording the transaction, that is resulted some wrong data. That also you can correct up to certain extent. Yeah. Setups always you can update. If you did mistake, it's certain mistakes you can correct. Certain mistakes, if you want to correct the data, you have to take the Oracle support. Oracle only will have a privileges to do certain changes at the database level. From front end, you cannot do that. That's how it works.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Fine. Okay. We'll move on to another point here.
Good morning, sir.
Yeah, please. Good morning.
Yeah, as per my understanding, it means any kind of correction will do by Oracle team, Oracle Cloud team. Am I right?
No. Oracle team means
No,
consultant.
transactional data. Suppose, for example, somebody wants to pass the JD and somebody has selected incorrect chart of account. So in that case, if I want to change the COA name, so that means that task must be or will do by Oracle team.
No. See, certain setups. Okay. Certain setups as a consultant we can correct it, and few setups we cannot.
Okay.
Have to take the DBA help. And when user is going to create the transactions, as a consultant we can do certain updates, and few updates can be done by business users also. That totally depends exactly what setup that is, which transaction that is, again that is standing at what level, and if it is a transaction, what is the status of the transaction. There are many points which we have to consider when it comes to the corrections or updates or changes. We'll see that. We'll be working on one by one. So based on that, we will discuss those points also. If you create something, whether that can be updated or not. Now, if I can use some naming conventions, you cannot understand. Okay. So
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
ledger, you have a chart of accounts, calendar, currency, you cannot update it. Accounting method you can change. This is how if you are going to discuss, it is unknown information for many people. We'll see that. We are going to work on instance, which is possible, which is not possible, that we will come to know. Yeah.
Okay, sir. Sure. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, done. Now, this is the point we have to understand. By default, we get two instances. Ideally, we use one instance for testing, other instance for production. If at all the implementation is going to be pass-based implementation, the same test instance they can use for development purpose also. Otherwise, they can get one more instance. For training purposes, whatever instances Oracle provides, that those instances we can get with the sample data. The sample data you can find company as a vision. That is the reason that instance we call as a vision instance. Okay, vision instance. Fine. So you got access to instance from Oracle. Okay, you got an access to one instance from Oracle. Now, as a functional consultant, what you have to do? Okay, as a functional consultant, what we have to do? So we'll discuss those points. When you get access to any instance, ideally we create our own user. Of course, we get Oracle will provide one user. They'll provide the login credentials to the instance. We'll log into that instance with that user credentials. Ideally, we create our own user. So if you want to create user in this instance, what process we have to follow, what points need to be considered. We'll see that. So you want to create one user. Say you want to create user called as ERPTREE. Right. So how to create the user and all, we'll discuss those points. So when you create the user, that user required full privileges to the entire instance. The user is going to work as a consultant. When user is going to work as a consultant, the consultant user required full privileges to the entire environment. So for that reason, what we have to do is when you create the new user in the instance, or say pod, pod, we have to assign certain roles. Okay, roles. So we have to give if you want to give the permissions to any user to have access to this instance environment, we have to assign the roles. Okay, through roles only we can give the access to the user. So which roles we have to assign to the user? We have two roles. Those are like application implementation consultant. We have to assign application implementation consultant and IT security manager. We have to assign these two roles to user. Why we have to assign application implementation consultant role to user? If you assign application implementation consultant role to user, the user will get access to FSM. Okay, FSM. What does it mean by FSM? Functional Setup Manager. Okay, if you assign the role called as application implementation consultant role to the user, that user will get connected to FSM. FSM stands for Functional Setup Manager. When user will get access to FSM, what that user can do? The user can do the setups, or you can say configuration. Okay, this is a point we have to understand. If any user is going to work as a consultant on any instance, that user required access to application implementation consultant role. Okay, application implementation consultant role. We have a different type of roles also. We'll discuss that point also very soon. For now, you can take simple point as a role. Application implementation consultant is one of the role name. So what is the use of that application implementation consultant role? If you have access to application implementation consultant role, that role will allow you to access FSM. FSM stands for Functional Setup Manager. What we can do with the help of Functional Setup Manager, we can do the setups or say configuration. Doing setups or configuration only we call as implementation. These are the part of implementation activities. And why we have to assign IT Security Manager role to user? If you assign IT Security Manager role to user, that user will get access to Security Console. That user will get access to Security Console. There are many advantages of Security Console, but for now, just we need a simple point that we will take for our discussion. If user will have access to Security Console, that user will be able to create new users from the Security Console. Create new users. So if you assign IT Security Manager role to any user, that user can get access to Security Console so that that user will be able to create new users. So every consultant need access to these two roles when they start implementation. After doing certain setups for what are the additional roles access that the user require, we will discuss that later. When we are going to do the fresh implementation, if we are going to start implementation process on any instance, whatever the user you are going to use for the implementation, that user required access to these two roles so that you will have a full privileges on the instance. Okay, there are a few other points also we have to understand, but not now. For now, take this point. Okay, so every user who are going to work as implementation consultant, that user required access to these two roles. The first role will give the privileges to do the setups. The second role will give the privileges to create the new users. Along with that, you can assign the roles also to the user. There are many other activities. Now, if you discuss all the list of points, it will become little confusion for us, not required now. Slowly we'll come across all those points. So this is what we have to understand. Initially, whatever the user we create in the system, that user we call as an implementation user. Users are classified into two types. Okay, one is implementation user. We have another user called as employee user. Why we have to make this difference, how these two are different also, we will understand after some time, because we have to do some setups. Based on that we can discuss. Now in the fresh instance, the very fresh instance, whatever the user you create, that user you call as an implementation user. Okay, whatever the user you create in the fresh instance, that user we call as implementation user. How to create implementation user? By assigning these two roles, you have to create the implementation user so that that user can perform any setups in the system environment as a consultant. Any questions here, please? If no questions, we'll go and see in the system how to create a user, how to assign these roles and all. Any questions here, please? Just focus on the points what we are discussing, and other relevant points will come to know very soon. Any questions here, please?
I just want to know the user which Oracle will be providing, that is an sysadmin, or we will be creating the sysadmin?
No. See, sysadmin, it's all now. If you assign these two roles, the user will act as a sysadmin user, full privileges. Okay, there is no default user. In older versions, there was a user called as FA admin. Okay, in the very older versions. Now in the current versions, Oracle is not providing any default user. If you subscribe, if you take the subscription for Oracle Fusion implementation, simply they'll create one user and they'll give you, then with that user you can log in and you can create your own user and you can start doing the implementation. Okay, here there is no default user Oracle is providing. Fine. Any other questions here, please?
Yeah, Lakshman.
Sir, my question.
Yeah, Lakshman. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning.
Can we give a read-only access or update access for the user? Like my question is like if we assigned application implementation like FSM role to the user, then he can able to update the transaction data also, right?
No, that is wrong. It's only for setups. I clearly mentioned setups only. It's not related to any transactions. Only setups.
Okay.
Say you have a payables invoices. For that we have a separate role. You want to create payable invoice, you have one role. You want to process the payments, you have a separate role. You want to create the supplier, you have a different role. You want to work on receivables application, you have a separate role. Those are application specific roles we have. These are not application specific. These are the roles which are required for consultant. These will allow us to do only setups, not transactions.
Yeah, my requirement is Lakshman, like I'm a like support support function. So a user entered some invoice in AP. Okay, as a support consultant, I should able to.
Yeah, those roles are different. Yes, if you want to give read-only permissions, you can give it. That is
Okay.
Yeah, that is possible.
Okay, thank you.
So we will work on the concept called as role customization. How to create new roles. Okay. If you are from EBS background, we have menus concept, right?
Yeah, function menu. Yeah.
As per business requirement, we have to create many custom menus. In the same way, Fusion, we create custom roles.
Okay.
There we'll discuss how to create new roles, how to copy and modify the roles, okay, how to compare the roles, how to create the roles from scratch, what are the type of roles we have. We'll discuss everything. Okay. In this stage, that information is not required. That is the reason we are not discussing. The simple point here is, if you are going to work as implementation consultant for any implementation project, or if you are going to work for any support or any sort of engagement, if you are going to work as a consultant, you need access to these two roles. Why you need access to these two roles? The first role will give you the access to do the setups. Second role will give you the access to create the users, and many other privileges also will get because of IT security manager. So the user, whatever you create in the fresh instance, that user you call as an implementation user. This is the simple point we have to understand. Any questions here, please?
Sir, my question is, sir, let's say we are purchasing, we are using cloud services, okay?
Okay.
So Oracle Cloud Services. So how any limitation is there, or we can create n number of users, or means that limitations is there?
Yeah,
100, 10, 50 users can create.
Limitation would be there. You have to take the subscription for user base also, number of users.
Okay.
Create. Within the
and that
create. Because these instances are managed by Oracle. Easily they can do the auditing. If it is the EBS instance, you may take the license for a certain 100 users. You may create more than 100. Until unless the Oracle team will come for audit, they cannot find it. But these instances are cloud instances. these instances are managed by Oracle at any point of time. Easily they can check. So
Okay.
if you take the subscription for 100 users, you should create 100 users only, not more than.
Okay. And another question is that, for example, A is a user. I have created a user. So that I want to give this A user to two different persons. So is it possible to
Yeah.
two persons use the same ID?
See, two persons, if you need those persons identification also in the system, that means those are two employees. Take example.
Correct, sir. Yes, yes, yes.
User is A. Okay, employee X and employee Y you want to give. Yes, you can give it to X and Y. But if you want to give the identification to this user as X or Y, you can give it to only one user.
Okay.
Without
Means same ID I can use.
identity.
Same ID I can use for two different persons.
Yes, you can. User you can give create and you can give to n number of users without that user identity, employee identity. If you need that employee identity, this user you want to give only X, and when you look at this user, you should be able to identify this user is used by X. Definitely this employee you have to map with this user. In that case, one user you can give to only one user or say one employee. We do the mapping.
Okay, sir. Okay, got it.
User A is used by which employee, that we have to specify in the system. In that case, we can give one user to only one employee.
Got it, sir.
We'll see all these points. We will work on this. Yeah. Any other questions, please?
Hi, Lakshman. Yes. Hi, Lakshman.
Yeah.
In Fusion, there is no concept of responsibilities for granting access to the users.
Exactly.
In EBS, we have the concept of responsibilities to grant the access.
Yeah. See here. Let's talk about this simple point. In EBS, you have a user. Okay. The user need access to AP application. Then what we do? We'll create AP responsibility, right?
Yep.
In Fusion, user need access to AP application. We'll give the access to AP role. That's all.
AP roles. So then we can restrict, because in our responsibilities, we are excluding the functions from responsibility. So in roles also we can restrict the accesses.
Here, we don't have that kind of functionality. Simply what you can do is, say you have one role, AP role, say responsibility you have, within this we have a 10 features or 10 functions. You want to exclude one, you can exclude.
Yep.
The same way in the AP role, you have a 10 functions. You don't want to, you want to exclude two or one only. There is no option.
Yep.
What we have to do is, this we have to copy.
Okay, custom.
Yeah.
Custom.
Yes. We have to copy, remove one what you want to exclude, make it 9. You assign this to, that's all.
So it's a responsibility is replaced with role. So
yeah.
In EBS, okay.
Responsibilities replaced with the roles, you can say.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Fine. Any other questions here, please? Okay, we have a different. So those roles also will compare and will discuss with the EBS, because in EBS we have menus, submenus, and responsibility. We assign operating units, ledgers with a responsibility. We use profile options. These are all we have. The guys who are from EBS background, for information, we'll talk on that. Okay, who are not from EBS background, they can ignore those points. But wherever that information is required, I'll just cover that. Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, Lakshman, one thing. When we are going this user restriction is also applicable for pass, because platform only they are giving, server organization is only. Is there also this user restriction will be there?
Yeah, any. See, here, when you talk about pass, they are giving the additional privileges that is nothing but doing customization. Okay. It could be SaaS or PaaS. You have to take the subscription based on number of users and application by following some time frame. That's all. It's applicable. So here in SaaS, you cannot do customizations, product related. That is allowed in the PaaS. That's all. The user limitation is in both. Yeah, please.
In the case of the IaaS also same thing?
IaaS is nothing, empty. What you can do? In IaaS, no applications. You buy the space. Within that, what you want to install. Whether you want to install SAP or Oracle or something else, that is up to you. You are not getting any IaaS from Oracle with Oracle product.
Okay, but if in case of the IaaS, I bought an Oracle product and I have installed it. But in the Oracle product, while installing.
One second. You are taking the license from Oracle.
Yes.
License you are going to take.
Pardon?
Product license you have to take.
No.
You have
after taking the product license, again the user restrictions will come or no? That is
everywhere user restrictions definitely matter. Okay, when you are buying the subscription or license, you have to take it for some number of users. Yeah.
Okay.
The user count really matter. Like always, just for how many users you are taking that subscription or license, accordingly you have to use the product. So now we'll go and see how to create the user, how to assign the roles. That could be application implementation consultant or IT security manager, and we'll verify that user got access to FSM and security console or not. Okay, we'll go and see that. Okay, first we'll see how to create the user, how to assign the roles. When you are going to do the practice on this instance, we will provide you one user. With that user, you can log into this instance and you can follow the same process to create your own user. Okay, when you provide one user for your practice, don't use that user to do the practice. Create your own user, and with that new user, you can practice whatever we are going to discuss in the classes. Okay? So for now, I am going to use one user called as Walmart. Here already created one user called as Walmart. Now I will log into the instance with this user as a Walmart user, and we will create the user called as ERPTREE and we'll assign these roles. You'll see that process. Let's focus on the user creation. When we are going to do these activities, we'll come across many. By seeing that, don't try to understand anything. We'll come to know all those points. Now let's focus on user creation process. Okay. So this is one of the cloud instance which we are going to use. This is SaaS based instance. So first let's log into that instance. Walmart. Okay, you can connect to this instance from any internet connected device. Even from your smartphone also you can connect to this instance. No plugins, add-ins are required to connect to the instance. Done. So after logging to the instance, here you can see vision. This is the logo. Oracle place logo with the company name. Company name is Vision, and they place this logo. We can change also. This is just logo. Now we want to create the user. From where we can create the user? Here we discussed one point. If you have access to IT Security Manager, you can connect to Security Console. From Security Console, you can create the new user. The current user for Walmart user, already these two roles are assigned. That means this Walmart user can create user since this user got access to IT Security Manager role. From any user, if you want to create one more user, that user required access to IT Security Manager. Now let's see how to navigate to Security Console to create the user. Here we have bar icons. Okay, here you could see 3 bars. Click on the same bar icon that we are calling as a navigator. It will allow us to navigate to certain page or functionalities. Just click on this bar icon. It will open the navigator. Okay, this is the navigator page. Within the navigator, you have to go to Tools section. Tools. Scroll little down. Here you can find Tools. Click on Tools. You could see that is expanded. Okay. Under Tools, there is a task called as Security Console. If you are able to see Security Console here, that means we have to understand this user got access to IT Security Manager. If you don't find Security Console under Tools, simply you have to understand user doesn't have access to IT Security Manager role. If IT Security Manager role is assigned to this user, then only you can see Security Console task here. In Fusion, whatever the activity you do, the most of the activities we call as a task. Okay, here we have one task called as Security Console. Just click on Security Console task. It will take us to Security Console page. Okay, Security Console page. And here we'll discuss one point. We have IDM. IDM stands for Identity Manager. The same you can call as Oracle Identity Manager, OIM. In the older versions, okay, the older versions, I think up to release 10. Release 10. Now the latest version is release 13. How to check that in the instance also we'll see today. The older versions up to release 10, what Oracle it is, they are giving access to IDM or OIM. Both are same. You can call as IDM or OIM. With the help of this IDM or OIM, you can create the users. Create user. So within the IDM and the IDM, let's call it as OIM. Both are same. Okay, let's use this name. By using OIM, you can create the user. Again, within the OIM, Oracle Identity Manager, there is a lot of sensitive information which is related to instance. Up to release 11, Oracle given access to IDM directly, or IDM or OIM. They given access directly to Oracle Identity Manager. Then consultants are started just working on that OIM, and Oracle encountered many issues by knowingly or unknowingly. Consultants or other resources who are part of the team, they are just touching certain components within the IDM or OIM which they are not allowed to do it. Since they are giving access, people are started playing with that by changing certain parameters, certain sensitive information. That is creating many issues for the entire instance. That is the reason after release 10, Oracle stopped giving access to IDM to the consultants. Now IDM or OIM can be accessed by only Oracle team, not implementation team or client team. So what privileges we required from IDM for consultants, that only they are giving. Now Oracle is allowing the users, consultants, to have access to user creation, roles related activities. That's all. User creation and role related permissions only they are giving. Role related means what we have many, like managing the roles. There are multiple activities which we can do, that we'll discuss later. For now, simple point is, so what Oracle is doing is they are not giving the IDM access now. After up to release 10, they given access to IDM. After release 10 onwards, they are not giving the access to IDM application. They are giving access to only user creation and roles access, role related activities you can do. For this, Oracle created security console. Okay, they created a framework called as security console. Through security console, they are allowing us to create users and to manage the roles. That's all. So now, if you are able to access to security console, in the background we have IDM. That is the point we have to discuss, which deals with this fusion related security. Okay, this is the point we have to understand. Now we are in security console. Now what we want to do, we want to create the new user. To create the user, select the user. Okay, just select the user section. Now here you can create the user. Click on add user account. So this is the implementation user. Okay, implementation user. Now you cannot link this user with any employee user. If you get access to fresh instance, when you create the new user, you cannot have employees. We have to create employees, then only you can link. So that part we call as an employee user, that we will discuss later. We have to complete many setups, then only you can create the employee user, and the difference also we will discuss. But now what we can do is we can create the implementation user from security console. What are the users you create from security console? Those users we call as implementation users. Okay, let's provide the name here. ERPTREE. And we have to provide the password and we have to confirm the same. We'll do that later. Okay, we given the name. Now we'll go and assign these two roles. Okay, we'll go and assign the two roles. Here you could see one tab called as add role. Click on add role tab. Search for the role. Which role we want to assign to this user? The role name is application implementation consultant. Just type application implementation. Just type up to application implementation. Now you can see many roles. Application implementation administrator, application implementation administrator. These two roles are same, but there is slight difference in the role code. This code is starting with ASM, this code is starting with ORA. Now we have one more role as a application implementation administrator. Somebody copied the role. Which role they copied? ASM. That means this role they copied. We can copy any role and we can modify, or you can create any role from the scratch. And another role you can see as application implementation consultant, application implementation consultant. The code is different. This is starting with ASM, this is starting with ORA. Okay, there is some reason, like there is some difference, like if role code is starting with the ASM or ORA, what makes the difference? There is one point which we have to understand that will test in case of custom roles related concept. Okay, session. And the same like application implementation consultant copy role, somebody copied the role, and application implementation consultant, again they copied this ORA prefixed as well as ASM prefixed. Application implementation manager codes are different. Application implementation manager copy. So this is how you could see multiple roles, okay, as the administrator, consultant, and manager. But what we need is consultant only. Why we have to choose consultant? When you compare this consultant role with administrator or manager, consultant role will have more privileges compared to administrator and to manager. So when we are going to work as a consultant, we have to select the consultant role so that we'll have full privileges to do any sort of system configuration as per the business requirement. So you have to select application implementation consultant role only. Search for consultant. Now again the question is, here we can see the two roles with the same name. Okay, two definitions with the same name, and here these are the copied. Okay, always you can ignore copied roles. When you are working in the fresh instance, you never see copied roles. Okay, since this is a vision instance, somebody copied for the testing purpose. Okay, to understand how to copy, how to do the modification, somebody copied that. Those you completely you can ignore. You have to focus on these roles: application implementation consultant, application implementation consultant. One roll code is starting with ASN, other one is ORA. Which one you have to choose? Anyone you can choose. Both roles will have the same privileges. Okay, select any one of the role. It doesn't make any difference. But why they given two, we will discuss. There is one point. But in this stage, when we create the implementation user, which role you have to select, you no need to look at role code. Just search for application implementation consultant role and select it. Select, click on add role membership. Nothing but assign this role to user. Click on add role membership. The background you could see application implementation consultant role is assigned to the user. Done. Now we have to assign one more role. That is IT security manager role. Search for IT security manager role. Okay, IT security manager. Here also with the same name you have a two copies. One is starting with FND, other one is starting with ORA. You don't need to just check what role is having which code, doesn't matter. And two more copies also, you can see somebody created copy, the same role somebody copied and they mentioned as a do not use. They might have did some changes. They're recommending not to use. Anyway, those are all not required for us. So select role call as IT security manager irrespective of role code. Whether it is starting with FND or ORA doesn't matter. Select role call as IT security manager. Click on that role. It would get selected. Then click on add role membership. This role will get assigned to user. These two roles only we require now. Okay. So there are many other roles we have to assign. Those all we have to assign based on the setups. But when you create the user, these two are more than enough. Click on done. Okay. So how we are creating user? We given the name. And if you want to provide all these details, you can provide first name, email, okay, last name, etc. You can provide, but optional fields. So we assign these two roles. We given the last name and this is the username. Okay, we given the last name, same last name system is defaulting as username. If you want to change, you can change. And set password. Here you could see the password policy. Okay, simple. At least 8 characters, one number. Okay, that is the password policy you have when you create the users. So you can set the password here and you confirm the same. Now click on save and close. Click on save and close. We created user. We'll find the user from here itself. We created a user as a ERPTREE. Click on search. The user display name is ERPTREE and the user name is ERPTREE. We didn't provide any email ID and the status of user is active and the user account is not locked. Locked? No. User account is not locked and we can perform certain actions against this user. What are those? We'll see. Click on this drop down. If you want to lock this user, you can lock. So that user will be available in the system, in the application environment. You cannot access to the instance. You cannot log it once you log this account. If you want to reset the password to this user, yes, you can do this. If you want to delete, you can delete. After creating the transactions also, you will be able to delete the user. But ideally, this functionality, they should not give, but they give it. Okay, but we should aware whether we have to delete the users or not. Even if you delete the user, that is a very virtual delete only. With that user, if already transactions are created, that in that transaction level, the user names and all will remain as it is, because you are going to delete the names. That information cannot be removed. That information will remain in the instance. So virtually the user will be deleted. If you search and if you try to find out the user, you cannot find. These are the points you have to understand. Let's see how to reset the password for the user. Select manually change the password and provide the new password. This is how you can reset the password to user. Okay. Don't delete any users, and no need to log the accounts. So this is how you can create. You can click on, if you want to open this user account, you can click on the display name or username. For both, they are giving the hyperlink. So just click on display name. Now you can see here, this is username, this is last name, which roles are assigned to this user. That information you can find. From here also, you can reset the password. Okay, done. So now we created user. Now just sign out from this user and log into the instance as a ERPTRee user, and so that we can verify the user, because of application implementation consultant role, the user got access to FSM or not, and IT security manager role, the user is able to access to security console or not, we will verify. Okay, we assigned only 2 roles to this user. Just sign out. Now you can just connect to the instance as a ERPTRee user. Sign in. Okay, done. First we'll verify this ERPTRee user got access to FSM or not. How to check? Click on username. We'll open one panel. Within the panel, you can find one task called as setup and maintenance. This task we are able to see here because application implementation consultant role is assigned to this user. If you don't assign application implementation consultant role, you don't find this task within this panel. Okay. If you click on setup and maintenance, this task will navigate us to FSM, functional setup manager. So just click on setup and maintenance task. So this is the FSM page. From here you can do any setups. That's what we discussed, right? So application implementation consultant role will give the access to FSM. If you click on setup and maintenance task, it will navigate us to FSM. Now we are in the FSM page. This is the FSM environment. And there what we can do the setups. We have enough time to do the setups, but now we are not going to do the setups at all. So just we'll verify, we'll check. Say I want to do the finance related setups. How to do from this page? Click on drop down, select financials. In the financials, you want to do the setups related to which application? I want to do the setups related to general ledger. Here we have a general ledger, select it. And here say all tasks. These are the general ledger related setups. You want to do the payable setups. Select payables. Say all tasks. These are the tasks which are related to payables. So you want to implement fixed assets application. Select fixed assets, all tasks. These are the setups. The same way receivables. And if you want to implement procurement application, yes, you can select procurement. Okay. So within the procurement, what setups you want to do, all just you can select it to it. Fine. So this is a FSM. Okay, this page we call as FSM environment. From here you can do the setups. There are many other points we have to discuss. There are many ways to do the setups also. After discussing all those points, we'll start doing the setups. So we'll see that later. Just for information purpose, we are checking this. So this ERPTRee user got access to FSM. From FSM, you can do any setups. Now we'll verify whether this user got access to IT security console or not. Because we assigned IT security manager role to this user should be able to have access to security console. From there, this user should be able to create the new users also. We'll check that. How to verify? Click on the navigator. Scroll little down. expand the tools. Under tools, you have a security console. That means we have to understand this ERPTREE user got access to IT security manager role. If IT security manager role is not assigned to this ERPTREE user, so here you don't see security console. Let's click on security console. Right now, go to users. Say add user account. Yes, we are able to create the users from this user now. Test ERP. Just like I'm creating the user, I'm not assigning any roles. Okay. See, this user got access to many privileges as per this navigator. Okay, if you click on username, you can see setup and maintenance task, which will allow the user to access to FSM. Now we created one more user and we didn't assign any roles. We'll log into that user and we'll check what privileges that user got. Click on navigator, nothing. These are the default privileges. Expand tools, nothing. No security console, nothing. Click on username. No setup and maintenance task. This user cannot perform any setup. Okay. This user doesn't have access to application implementation consultant role or IT security manager. Just the user without any privileges. So this is how we have to create the user. Any questions on these points, please?
Hello, sir. You say that. Can you go to the Excel, please? For example, sir, we can delete this user because the cloud having the facility to delete the user. For example, I did some transaction and I want to delete, but all these transactions are there still has been there with the user.
Yeah, that is the point we discussed. When we discussed about delete function, I was talking about the same. Say you
Okay, but sir,
you created
my only one question.
No, 1 second.
Only one question.
Please.
Yes, sir. My one question is, sir, for example, I have created and deleted, and all these transactions are there. If I want to recreate the same user, can I do or not?
Same user.
For example, sir, A is the user or X is the user I have created, correct?
Yeah.
And I have deleted, and X user did some transaction, and these transactions are kept in the DB with the name of X.
Yes.
Now again, X user is joined, means after left he rejoined this organization, and once and ERP administrator want to create.
You can do that. You can do that.
Okay.
Yeah, and again,
Okay.
type tracking would be there when you created a previous user. Okay, that you will be able to track in the database, and when you delete it again with the same name when new user is created. Okay, this is all
Okay, sir.
trackable in the database.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Possible, please. Any other questions, please? Now, whatever we did in the system, user creation on this process. Any questions? Anyone, please?
It will be having the same table like FND user and FND roles.
See, this is a OIM, Oracle Identity Manager. Here we have a different tables. Okay.
Lakshman, how do I?
The IDM tables, the data would get stored. Yeah, please.
Yeah, Lakshman, how do I create a end user profiles?
Yeah, we'll see that. When we have to create end user profiles once implementation is done, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. once we complete all the setups, we will see that. Because say you want to create one end user who is going to work for payables invoice process. If you want to create that end user profile, first of all, you have to implement payables.
Right.
Yeah. First, after completing all these setups, we will see those.
Okay. Okay.
As a consultant, how to start? Okay, that's what we are focusing on.
Hello.
Yeah, slowly we'll come.
Hello, Lakshman sir.
Please. Yeah, please go ahead.
Hello.
I can hear.
Yes, sir. Lakshman sir. Good morning, sir.
Please. Good morning. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Anywhere duplicate records are created in databases? It's unfortunately.
What sort of duplicate records, you tell me?
Yes, sir. Sir. It's a duplicate records. It's nothing,
Okay,
sir. But
as a general, we'll discuss.
Yes, sir.
Not possible. System will.
Yes, sir.
When you are creating a system, when you say you created some record, it may be user or it may be some transaction number, etc., or supplier name or customer name you created already, and again you are trying to create. When you try to save, it will throw the message. Okay, already with record exist, or already with this number, so transaction is available. Already with this name, supplier is there. So that's how the duplication won't happen.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Yeah.
Lakshman, you told these data will be stored. Users will be stored in OIM tables. So
yes.
Under SaaS and PaaS model, we won't be able to query those tables, right? We won't be having access to
you can
backend.
query all that. Any table you can query. I'll show you that when we are
okay.
How to query. I'll show you all the tables where you can find any application related tables. How to find everything Oracle is providing. Okay. We will go through all those things.
Sure.
Hi, Lakshman. What is auto provision in the user creation screen? Oh, no. What is auto provisioned? In the user creation screen, there's something called auto provision.
Yeah, auto provision is related to employee users. When you create employee users, I'll cover those. Don't mind, you could see something which we are not discussing as of now. We have time. I can explain. I know all those points, but it would be unnecessary information now. So whenever the certain point we can understand, whenever we can implement that, accordingly we'll do in the session. Yeah. So yes.
Okay, got it.
You might have noticed at the time of user creation, one is add role, other one is auto provision. That means you can set a rule. Okay. If employees belongs to so-and-so department, or employees belongs to so-and-so location, or employees belongs to so-and-so job, or so-and-so position, which role system has to assign automatically, that sort of rules you can set. So that you don't need to assign any roles. System will assign automatically. That we can test once employee user is ready. Yeah.
Okay, sure.
I'll cover all those. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. So fine, we done for today. If you have any questions, you can stay back. Otherwise, no further discussions. Any questions from anyone, please?
Sir, I'm saying once we are using the password and this and that, sir, there is a facility after expiry of password. So I didn't see that.
We can set all those in the security console.
Okay, sir. Okay, thank you, sir.
Yeah, we'll just we will touch that security console multiple times with various reasons. That process will come across when you're copying our roles. Also, you can set the defaults, etc. We'll come to know all those.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thanks. So apart from whatever Oracle is allowing from security console, if you want to set some additional rules or conditions related to password, etc., you can always raise SR to Oracle. Since they have a full access to IDM, they can do on our request. That's how it works. And let me show you one more point here. Let's discuss about one more point. That is nothing but how to check the application version. So this is the instance we are using. Now if you want to check this, which release related application we are using, you can click on username and click on about this application. Okay, about this application. So here you copy this. This is what we have within the instance. When Oracle released this Fusion, okay, the version they are using as 11. Okay, 11 just, and version is 11. They almost from release 7 onwards they given the access to clients. Here this is a version is 11. The version is always 11 only. The release is 7. Here this, if you look at this, you have to understand this is release 7. After that they came up with release 8, then release 9, 10, 11, 12, now 13. And this sub-versioning they remove. And what they did is, you see here, version is 11, release is 13. Now we are using release 13. What is this 20? 20 is nothing but year. Okay, 2020, year. And what is this 10? 10 is the month. 10 is the month. This 0 that they are not using for any purpose. So when you look at this version, you have to understand this is 11 version. We never call any instance with a version. Always we call as a release only. This is a release 13 instance. And what is this 20? 2020 year. And what is this 10? This is a month. Why they are giving this year and month? The release is 13, and release 13 instance in 2020 October month they applied the patch. Okay, so that's what they are giving as 20D. 20D means 2020 year. D means fourth quarter. 20A, 20B, 20C, 20D. Fourth quarter. In the fourth quarter, they applied the patch. Latest patch is applied on this instance in this quarter. That is the information you can see. But simply, if you want to understand which release, not version. Okay, version is always from beginning 11 only. Always we identify the instance with the release only. Okay, which release of instance we are using, if you want to check, here you could see which release and what is the latest patches applied. Or patch related, simply you can say 20D. In the year of 2020, they applied patch in the fourth quarter. Okay, fourth quarter, that is nothing but D. This is what we have to understand. Okay, release 13 is this. This we no need to consider. This is version related. Version will remain as it is. If Oracle is going to come up with a new release, that would be 14 later. Earlier it was 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7. Okay. So this is all about how to check the release of application. Yeah. So this is a point we have to understand. That's how you can check in any instance which release instance we are using, which latest patch is applied on that instance. That's all. Now if you see this you have to understand release that. Okay. So these are the points we have to understand. In the tomorrow session, we'll discuss about FSM. In the FSM, we have to create implementation project and all. Why we have to create implementation project, how it is different compared to real implementation project, all those points we'll discuss. Tomorrow session will focus on FSM. Any questions on today's session or yesterday's session, please?
Sir, excuse me.
Please.
What about the zero which is mentioned at the last?
Nothing. They may utilize in the future if they want. See, earlier in the older versions, they use 11.1.1.7. Slowly, they started removing that, the subversioning. Okay, now when it comes to 13, this also they remove. Just they're putting some buffer space. Okay, additional values, those could be useful internal purpose, the version management or other purposes, but when it comes to us, simply we can understand with release only.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. Any questions from anyone, please? No questions. Then that's all for today. We'll connect tomorrow, same time. Thank you all.